The transport ship landed with a soft thud on the metal platform of Kepler Station. Steam hissed from the engines as the doors opened. Jake Morrison stepped out first, carrying a simple black bag over his shoulder. He looked around at the massive space station that floated between two moons. The walls were made of bright white metal that seemed to glow in the artificial light. "Pretty fancy place," said Lisa Roberts as she walked down the ramp behind him. Her short brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore the same gray uniform as Jake, with a small Earth flag patch on her sleeve. Tony Martinez was the last to leave the ship. He was shorter than the other two, with dark hair and quick eyes that took in everything around him. "Looks like they spent some serious money on this place," he said, whistling softly. The three humans walked across the landing platform toward a large building. Above them, the ceiling was clear glass that showed the stars and planets beyond. Other ships were landing and taking off constantly. Some were small like theirs. Others were huge vessels that could carry hundreds of passengers as they entered. The main building, they saw their first aliens. A group of tall, thin creatures with 4 arms were standing near the entrance. Their skin looked like it was made of clear crystal, and light seemed to move through their bodies in slow waves. These were Altarians. Jake remembered from the files he had read on the trip. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy," one of the Altarians said in perfect English. Her voice sounded like music, with notes that went up and down in a pleasant way. "I am Commander Thizes. You must be the human students." "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied, standing straight like he had been taught in the Marines. "Jake Morrison, former Pacific Defense Corps." "Lisa Roberts, Luna Colony Defense Force," Lisa said with a small nod. "Tony Martinez, Mars Engineering Corps." Tony added Commander Thizes made notes on a device that looked like a flat piece of glass. "Excellent. You will find your quarters in Section C, Level 15. Classes begin tomorrow at 0800 hours. I trust you will find everything you need." The humans thanked her and walked deeper into the station. The hallways were wide and clean, with soft lighting that changed colors as they moved. Other students were walking around, and Jake tried not to stare at the different alien species. A group of creatures that looked like giant insects walked past them. They had 6 legs and moved in perfect coordination, their movements quick and precise. Their heads were covered in shiny black armor, and their eyes were like dark gems. These were the Vex, Jake realized. "They look scary," Lisa whispered. "Everything looks scary when you don't know what it is," Tony replied quietly. Near the elevator, they saw more aliens. Some looked like they were made of gray rock, with thick arms and legs that seemed incredibly strong. They moved slowly, but with purpose, each step making a small sound on the metal floor. Others were floating in the air, their bodies looking almost like jellyfish, with beautiful colors that changed as they moved. "This is going to be interesting," Jake said as they got into the elevator. Their quarters were small, but comfortable. Each human had their own room with a bed, desk, and small bathroom. The walls had screens that could show pictures of Earth if they wanted. Jake set his bag on the bed and looked out the window at the stars. He had been in space before, but this felt different. On Earth, he had been just another Marine. Here, he was representing his entire species. The thought made him feel both proud and nervous. "Hey, you guys want to check out the cafeteria?" Lisa called from the hallway. "I'm starving, and I want to see what kind of food they have here." The 3 humans made their way to the main cafeteria. It was a huge room with tables and chairs of different sizes and shapes. Some tables were very tall for the big rock creatures. Others were low for species that preferred to sit close to the ground. The floating jellyfish-like aliens didn't seem to need tables at all. The food was strange, but not terrible. There were things that looked like vegetables from Earth, but in colors Jake had never seen before. The meat was different too, but it tasted okay. The humans found a table and sat down to eat. "Look at that," Tony said, pointing to a table where several different alien species were sitting together. They're all eating the same food, but they're using completely different methods. The rock creatures seemed to absorb their food somehow, while the insect-like Vex used their mandibles to cut and chew. The floating aliens lowered themselves over their food and seemed to absorb it through their skin. "Everyone's different, but we're all here for the same reason," Lisa said. "To learn how to protect our people." Jake nodded. He had read about the academy during his trip from Earth. It was supposed to be the best military training facility in the galaxy. Students came from dozens of different worlds to learn tactics, strategy, and combat skills. The idea was that if all the species learned to fight together, they could defend each other against any threat. "I wonder what they think of us," Tony said, looking around the cafeteria. "Humans, I mean. We're probably pretty boring compared to all these other species." "Boring might be good," Jake replied. "Let them underestimate us. We'll show them what humans can do when it matters." As they finished eating, Commander Thizes approached their table. "How are you finding your first day?" she asked. "Very interesting," Lisa replied. "Everyone seems very different, but also very dedicated." "That is the point of the academy," Thizes said. "Diversity makes us stronger. Tomorrow you will begin your training. I hope you are prepared for the challenges ahead." "We're ready," Jake said confidently. Commander Thizes looked at him with what might have been curiosity. "We shall see. Rest. Well, tonight. Tomorrow will be ... educational." After she left, the three humans returned to their quarters. Jake lay on his bed and thought about the day. The academy was impressive, and the other students seemed capable. But he couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would bring surprises. He had trained with the best soldiers on Earth, fought in conflicts across the solar system, and survived challenges that would have killed most people. But this was different. This was about proving that humanity belonged among the stars. As he drifted off to sleep, Jake smiled. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. The alarm sounded at 0600 hours, 2 hours before classes were supposed to start. Jake was already awake, doing push-ups on his room floor. He had been up for 30 minutes, following the same routine he had kept for years. Physical training came first, always. Lisa and Tony were also awake and ready. They met in the hallway, all three wearing the standard academy training uniforms. The clothes were made of a stretchy material that moved with their bodies and seemed to regulate temperature automatically. "Early start today," Lisa said, but she didn't sound tired. She looked alert and ready for whatever came next. "Good," Tony replied. "I want to see what they consider real training here." They made their way to the main training facility. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high they could barely see the top. Other students were already there, but most looked like they had just woken up. The rock creatures moved slowly, their heavy bodies needing time to warm up. The floating aliens bobbed gently in the air, their colors dim and muted. Commander Thizes stood at the front of the group, her crystal skin reflecting the bright lights. "Today we begin with basic endurance training," she announced. "This will help us understand your physical capabilities and limitations." The alien students nodded and made various sounds of agreement. Some of the insect-like Vex clicked their mandibles nervously. The rock creatures, who called themselves granite, shifted, their weight from foot to foot. "The course is simple," Thizes continued. "You will navigate a series of obstacles, including walls to climb, mud to cross, and water to swim through. Then you will complete a 5-kilometer run. This is considered a basic introduction to physical training." Jake looked at Lisa and Tony. All three were trying not to smile. 5 kilometers was barely a warm-up for human soldiers. On Earth, they regularly ran 20 kilometers or more during training. "Take your time," Commander Theises said. "There is no rush. The goal is to complete the course safely, not quickly." The alien students began to prepare. The floating Zephyrians checked their breathing equipment, making sure they had enough of their special gas mixture. The water-dwelling Cetans filled small tanks with liquid that would help them survive outside their natural environment. The granite creatures consumed mineral supplements to give them energy. The humans did some simple stretches and rolled their shoulders. They had eaten a light breakfast and drunk plenty of water. That was all they needed. "Begin when ready, Commander," Theises announced. The course started with a 3-meter wall. Most of the alien students approached it carefully. The granite creatures used their strength to climb slowly, their heavy bodies making the wall shake. The Vex used their 6 legs to scramble up quickly, but had to rest at the top. The Zephyrians simply flew over, their wings carrying them gracefully through the air. Jake ran at the wall and jumped, grabbing the top with both hands. He pulled himself up and over in one smooth motion, dropping down on the other side without slowing down. Lisa and Tony did the same, treating the wall like a minor inconvenience. The next obstacle was a mud pit about 10 meters wide. The aliens approached it with obvious discomfort. The granite creatures sank deep into the mud, their heavy bodies struggling to move through the thick liquid. The Vex had trouble because mud clogged their leg joints. The Zephyrians tried to fly over, but their wings got dirty and heavy. The humans dropped down and crawled through the mud on their bellies, moving quickly and efficiently. They kept their heads up to breathe and used their arms and legs to propel themselves forward. In less than a minute, all 3 were through and standing on the other side. "How did they do that so fast?" one of the Vex students asked another. "I don't know," came the reply. "They make it look easy." The water obstacle was next. It was a pool about 50 meters long that had to be crossed by swimming. The Cetans were obviously comfortable here, gliding through the water with their natural swimming ability. Other species struggled more. The granite creatures sank like stones and had to use special floating devices. The Vex could swim, but not very well. The humans dove in and swam across using powerful strokes. Jake used a military crawl that cut through the water efficiently. Lisa used a modified backstroke that let her move quickly while conserving energy. Tony used a breaststroke that was steady and strong. They all crossed the pool in under 2 minutes. By now, the other students were starting to notice. The humans weren't just completing the obstacles. They were doing it faster and with less effort than anyone else. And they didn't seem tired at all. The final part of the course was the 5-kilometer run. The aliens prepared for this like it was a major challenge. Some took energy supplements. Others adjusted their breathing equipment. The granite creatures looked worried about their heavy bodies having to move so far. "Remember," Commander Theises announced, "pace yourselves. This is about endurance, not speed." The run began around a track that went through different parts of the station. The humans started at a comfortable jog, their breathing steady and controlled. They had run much farther than this many times before. The other students spread out. Quickly, the Zephyrians flew at a steady pace, their wings working hard to keep them airborne. The Vex ran in short bursts, then had to rest. The granite creatures moved at a slow but steady pace, their heavy footsteps echoing in the corridors. By the 2nd kilometer, some of the alien students were already showing signs of fatigue. The Zephyrians were breathing hard, their wing beats becoming irregular. Several of the Vex had stopped to rest, their mandibles clicking in distress. Even some of the granite creatures were slowing down. The humans were still jogging comfortably. They weren't even breathing hard. Jake was actually having to slow down to avoid lapping some of the other students. "This is embarrassing," Lisa said, quietly as they ran. Should we pretend to be more tired? No, Tony replied. Let them see what we can do. They need to know what humans are capable of. By the 4th kilometer, medical teams were following some of the alien students. A few? Vex had collapsed and needed assistance. One of the Zephyrians had torn a wing and couldn't continue. The granite creatures were moving so slowly that they were barely making progress. The humans finished the 5-kilometer run in just over 20 minutes. They crossed the finish line together, barely breathing hard. They stretched their muscles and drank some water, but they looked like they could run another 5 kilometers without much trouble. It took another hour for all the other students to finish. Some needed medical attention. Others had to be helped across the finish line. The granite creatures were the last to complete the course, their heavy bodies exhausted from the effort. Commander Theises approached the humans with her tablet, making notes. Interesting performance, she said. You completed the course in half the time of your nearest competitors. It was a good warm-up, Jake replied honestly. Theises stopped writing and looked at him. Warm-up? Well, yeah, Lisa said. 5 kilometers isn't very far for a human. We usually run much farther during training. Much farther? Theises asked. 20-30 kilometers, Tony said. Sometimes more, depending on the exercise. The other students who were close enough to hear this conversation stopped what they were doing. They stared at the humans in disbelief. You run 30 kilometers regularly? Asked a Vex student, his voice filled with shock. Sure, Jake said. Sometimes with full gear, sometimes in difficult terrain. It's just part of staying in shape. That's impossible, said one of the Zephyrians. No species can run that far without serious risk. Humans can, Lisa said simply. We're built for it. Commander Theises made more notes on her tablet. I see. And the obstacles? You found them challenging? The 3 humans looked at each other. They didn't want to be rude, but they also didn't want to lie. They were okay, Tony said diplomatically. Good for a first day? First day? Theises repeated. This is advanced endurance training. It's designed to push students to their limits. Oh, Jake said, realizing the misunderstanding. We thought this was just a basic fitness test. The alien students were now openly staring at the humans. Some were making notes of their own. Others were talking in excited whispers. The humans had just treated their most challenging physical test like it was a casual morning exercise. Tomorrow, we will try combat simulations, Commander Theises said, her voice thoughtful. Perhaps that will be more appropriate for your abilities. Looking forward to it, Jake said with a smile. As the other students slowly made their way back to their quarters, many of them exhausted from the day's exercise, the humans walked casually alongside them. They weren't tired, they weren't sore, and they weren't worried about tomorrow's challenges. They were just getting started. The second week brought new challenges. The alien students had spent the entire weekend recovering from the endurance test, many of them still sore and tired. The medical bay had been busy treating pulled muscles, exhausted wing membranes, and overworked breathing systems. The humans had spent their weekend exploring the station and playing cards. I still can't believe how easy that run was, Lisa said as they walked to the morning briefing. Back on Luna, we used to run in low-gravity tunnels that were twice as long. The obstacles were fun, though, Tony replied. Reminded me of the training courses back on Mars, except those had actual dangers like radiation and unstable ground. Jake nodded. This place is pretty safe compared to Earth training. No live ammunition, no hostile environment, no drill sergeants screaming at you. They entered the briefing room where Commander Theises was waiting. The other students were already there, looking nervous. Word had spread about the human performance during the endurance test, and everyone was wondering what would happen next. Today we begin combat simulations, Theises announced. These exercises will test your tactical thinking, weapon skills, and ability to work under pressure. The aliens perked up at this. Combat was something they understood better than pure physical endurance. Each species had their own military traditions and fighting styles. The Vex were known for their swarm tactics and coordinated attacks. The granite creatures were famous for their defensive strategies and heavy weapons. The Zephyrians excelled at aerial combat and reconnaissance. Your first mission, Thyses continued, is a hostage rescue scenario. You must infiltrate a fortified position, neutralize hostile forces, and extract civilians without casualties. You have 2 hours to plan and execute the mission. She handed out data tablets with maps and intelligence reports. Remember, this is a simulation, but it will feel completely real. Pain, fatigue, and stress will all be present. Standard galactic warfare protocols apply. The alien teams immediately began intense planning sessions. They spread out maps, discussed formations, and argued about the best approaches. The Vex team drew detailed diagrams of their attack patterns. The Granite team calculated weapon ranges and armor thickness. The Zephyrians planned flight, paths, and observation points. The human team found a quiet corner and looked at their tablet for about 5 minutes. "Okay," Jake said, "so we have a building with hostages on the 3rd floor, bad guys on all levels, and civilians scattered throughout." "Standard stuff," Lisa agreed. "What's the building made of?" "Looks like reinforced concrete with metal supports," Tony said, studying the architectural plans. "I can breach the walls if needed." "Guards?" Jake asked. "About 20, spread across 4 floors. They have energy weapons and light armor," Lisa read from the intelligence report. "Easy," Tony said. "Go in quiet. Take out the guards floor by floor. Get the hostages. Get out." "And if quiet doesn't work?" Lisa asked. "Then we go loud," Jake replied simply. The alien teams were still planning when the humans stood up and declared they were ready. The other students looked at them in surprise. "You're finished planning already?" asked Zixtar, the Vex team leader. "We've been working on this for 30 minutes, and we're not even close to done." "What's the plan?" Tony asked. "We go in, we complete the mission, we come out." "But what about coordination protocols? What about backup plans? What about the 47? Rules of galactic warfare engagement?" Zixtar's mandibles clicked frantically. "We know the rules," Jake said. "We also know that when people are in danger, you don't waste time with complicated plans." The simulation chamber was a large room that could create any environment using hard light technology. As the teams entered, the room transformed into a city street with a tall building in the center. The detail was incredible. They could smell the air, feel the wind, and hear the sounds of traffic in the distance. "Simulation begins in 30 seconds, announced the computer voice. "All teams take positions." The alien teams moved to their starting points with careful precision. The Vex spread out in a complex formation that would allow them to support each other. The Granite team took defensive positions behind cover. The Zephyrians launched into the air for reconnaissance. The humans walked straight toward the building. "Beginning infiltration." Jake spoke into his communicator, his voice calm and professional. The first floor had 4 guards. The aliens spent several minutes planning their approach, coordinating their movements, and discussing the best way to neutralize the threats without alerting the upper floors. The humans were already inside. Jake had circled to the back of the building while Lisa and Tony approached from the front. Lisa provided overwatch from a nearby rooftop, while Tony created a distraction at the main entrance. Jake entered through a service door that he had quickly unlocked. The first guard went down silently, taken out by Jake before he even knew someone was there. The second guard was eliminated by Tony, who moved through the building like a ghost. The third and fourth guards were handled by Lisa, who whose precise shots from her sniper position dropped them instantly. "First floor clear," Jake reported, moving to second floor. The alien teams were still discussing their approach to the first floor when the humans were already climbing the stairs. The second floor had 6 guards and several civilian hostages. This required more careful work, but the humans moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this type of mission dozens of times in real life, where the stakes were much higher than a simulation. Jake and Tony worked together to clear the rooms, while Lisa provided covering fire. They moved in perfect coordination, communicating with simple hand signals and brief whispers. Each guard was eliminated quickly and silently. The hostages were secured and moved to safety. Second floor clear. "Hostages secured," Jake reported. Commander Thizes was watching the simulation from the control room, her forearms moving rapidly as she took notes. "How are they moving so fast?" she asked the technician. "I don't know," the technician replied. "They're not following any standard tactical doctrine that I recognize. They're just improvising." "But it's working," Thizes observed. On the third floor, the situation was more complex. The remaining guards knew they were under attack and had taken defensive positions. They were holding the most important hostages and were prepared to fight. This was where the alien teams expected the humans to slow down and develop a careful plan. This was where tactics and strategy would matter most. Instead, the humans went loud. Tony breached the main wall with a small explosive charge he had improvised from simulation materials. The explosion created a hole big enough for Jake to roll through while Lisa provided covering fire from the window. The guards were caught completely off guard by the sudden, violent assault. The firefight lasted exactly 47 seconds. The humans moved through the rooms like a force of nature, their weapons fire precise and deadly. They used the confusion and smoke to their advantage, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the guards could respond. When the smoke cleared, all the guards were down, all the hostages were safe, and the humans were already calling for evacuation. "Mission complete," Jake reported. "All hostages secured, all hostiles neutralized, no casualties. Total mission time, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The alien teams were still working on the first floor dot in the control room. Commander Thizes stared at the results in disbelief. "Run the simulation again," she ordered. "Mom?" The technician asked. "Run it again. Different scenario, higher difficulty." The second simulation was a military base assault. The third was a counterterrorism operation. The fourth was a rescue mission in hostile territory. The humans completed each one faster than the previous mission, with perfect results every time. After the fifth simulation, Thizes called an end to the exercise. The alien students gathered around, their various forms of faces showing confusion and shock. "How did you do that?" asked Kreetal, a granite warrior who had been trained in combat since childhood. "You moved like you've done these missions 1,000 times. "We have," Lisa replied simply. "Maybe not 1,000, but enough." "But the tactical complexity," Zixtar protested. "The coordination required, the split-second timing. How do you make it look so easy?" Jake thought about how to explain it. "On Earth, we train for combat from the time we're children. Not because we want to fight, but because we've learned that sometimes fighting is the only way to protect what we care about. Every human soldier has done missions like this for real," Tony added. "Not simulations, real missions where people die if you make mistakes." "The simulation was good," Lisa said, "but it was still just a simulation. There was no real danger, no real pressure. It was actually kind of relaxing." The alien students looked at each other in amazement. The humans had just called their most advanced combat training relaxing. Commander Thizes approached the group. "I'm curious about something," she said. What would you consider challenging combat training? The three humans exchanged glances. They were trying to be polite, but it was clear that nothing they had experienced so far was even close to their normal training standards. Well, Jake said carefully, back on Earth, we have this thing called survival training. They drop you in a hostile environment with minimal equipment, and you have to survive for weeks while enemy forces hunt you. And there's close quarter. By the third week, the academy felt different. News of the human performance had spread throughout the station. Instructors from other programs came to observe the training sessions. Advanced students stopped their own exercises to watch the humans work. Even the station administrators had begun taking notice. The humans continued to excel at every challenge, but it wasn't just their abilities that impressed the observers. It was their attitude. They treated every exercise like it was routine, every challenge like it was normal. What the academy considered advanced training, the humans considered basic practice. During a break between exercises, 6-Star approached Jake Morrison. The Vex warrior had been watching the humans carefully for days, trying to understand what made them so different. Human Jake, 6-Star said, his mandibles clicking nervously. I must ask you something that has been troubling me. Sure, Jake replied, sitting down on a bench and taking a drink of water. What's on your mind? Your species treats combat like it is nothing special. You complete our most difficult training exercises as if they were simple games. But I have studied your files. Humans have no natural weapons, no armor, no special physical abilities. How is this possible? Lisa and Tony had been listening to the conversation. They came over and sat down with Jake and 6-Star. Other alien students began to gather around, all of them curious about the same question. It's not that we think combat is nothing special, Jake said carefully. It's that we've been preparing for it our whole lives. I don't understand, said Thyra, a Zephyrian whose wings fluttered nervously. Preparing how? Well, Tony said, let me ask you something. What was your childhood like? Thyra thought for a moment. I learned to fly when I was very young. I studied mathematics and science in school. I played games with my friends. When I became an adult, I joined the military to serve my people. That sounds nice, Lisa said. Human children grow up differently. How so? Asked Granite Commander Kreetal, his rocky voice rumbling through the group. Jake looked at his teammates. They were all thinking the same thing. How do you explain? To peaceful species that humans grow up in a world that's constantly trying to kill them? On Earth, Jake began, children learn about danger from the time they can walk. We tell them stories about heroes who fought against impossible odds. We teach them that sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love. But surely your world is safe, 6-Star said. Your species has advanced technology, organized governments, peaceful societies. Parts of it are safe, Tony replied. But Earth is what we call a death world. The planet itself is dangerous. The weather can kill you. The animals can kill you. The plants can poison you. Even the air and water can be deadly in some places. The alien students looked shocked. They came from worlds where the environment was stable and predictable. The idea of a planet that actively threatened its inhabitants was hard to understand. You're exaggerating, Thyra said. No species could survive on such a world. We're not exaggerating, Lisa said quietly. Earth has storms that can destroy entire cities, earthquakes that can split the ground open, volcanoes that can cover whole regions in ash. Floods, fires, droughts, ice ages, our planet goes through cycles of destruction and renewal. And the animals, Tony added. We have predators that can kill a human in seconds. Sharks in the oceans, bears in the forests, venomous snakes, and spiders everywhere. Even tiny insects can carry diseases that kill millions of people. That's impossible, Kreetal said. How did your species survive? By becoming very good at surviving, Jake replied. We learned to work together, to think quickly, to adapt to any situation. We learned that the world doesn't care about fair play or rules. It just wants to kill you. So when we train for combat, Lisa continued, we're not learning something new. We're just applying skills we've been developing since we were children. Commander. Isis had been listening from a distance. Now she approached the group, her crystal skin reflecting the lights in complex patterns. I've been reviewing human military history, she said. Your species has been at war almost continuously for thousands of years, not with other species, but with each other. The alien students looked even more shocked. Most of their species had achieved peace centuries or millennia ago. The idea of constant warfare was horrifying to them. That's true, Jake admitted. Humans have fought each other for resources, territory, ideas, and sometimes just because we disagreed about things. But why? Zixtar asked. Why would you fight your own kind? Because we learned that if you don't fight for what you believe in, someone else will take it away from you, Tony said. It's not something we're proud of, but it's reality. All that fighting taught us something important, Lisa added. We learned that war is terrible and should be avoided whenever possible. But we also learned that sometimes fighting is the only way to protect innocent people. Let me tell you about human training, Jake said. When I joined the Marines, they put me through something called boot camp. For 3 months, they pushed me to my physical and mental limits. They made me run until I couldn't breathe, carry heavy weights until my muscles screamed, and solve problems while exhausted and under pressure. That sounds cruel, Lyra said. It was, Jake agreed, but it was also necessary. Because in real combat, the enemy isn't going to give you breaks or care about your comfort. They're going to try to kill you, and you have to be ready. After boot camp, I went to advanced training, Jake continued. We learned to fight in every environment, jungles, deserts, cities, underwater, in space. We learned to use every kind of weapon, to survive without food or water, to resist torture and interrogation. And that was just the beginning, Tony said. In the engineering course, we learned to build things under fire, to repair equipment while being shot at, to work in environments that would kill most people instantly. Flight training was similar, Lisa added. We learned to fly in storms, to fight while pulling G-forces that would make most species pass out, to navigate through asteroid fields and hostile space. But the hardest part, Jake said, wasn't the physical training. It was the mental training. They taught us to make life-and-death decisions in seconds, to keep fighting even when we were scared, to sacrifice ourselves for our teammates if necessary. The alien students were quiet for a long time. They were beginning to understand that humans weren't just naturally good at combat. They had been forged by centuries of conflict into something that could survive anything. There's something else, Lisa said, something that might be hard for you to understand. What? Commander. Isis asked. We don't fight because we like it, Lisa explained. We fight because we love something enough to protect it. Our families, our friends, our way of life. Love makes us strong. I don't understand the connection, Zixtar said. When you know that someone you care about is in danger, Tony said, you'll do things you never thought possible. You'll run farther, fight harder, endure more pain than you ever imagined. Every human soldier carries a picture of home, Jake said. Not because we're sentimental, but because it reminds us what we're fighting for. It's not about destroying the enemy. It's about protecting what we love. That's why your training seems easy to us, Tony explained. Because we've been through much worse, and we did it for people we care about. When the stakes are real, when lives are on the line, humans can do incredible things. Commander Thyses made notes on her tablet. But this level of training, this constant preparation for war, doesn't it make your species violent? Aggressive? Actually, it makes us the opposite. Lisa said, when you truly understand the cost of war, when you've seen what violence can do, you become more committed to peace. Every human soldier has seen friends die, Jake said quietly. We've all lost people we cared about. That's why we train so hard, so that maybe next time we can save more lives. You train for war so that you don't have to fight? Thyra asked, confused. We train for war so that when we do have to fight, we can end it quickly, Tony replied. The longer a conflict lasts, the more people die. If you're overwhelming strong and skilled, you can stop a war before it really starts. There's an old human saying, Jake added. If you want peace, prepare for war. It means that being ready to fight makes others less likely to start fights with you. The alien students sat in silence, trying to process what they had learned. The humans weren't violent monsters or natural killers. They were a species that had been shaped by their dangerous world and their own history into something that could protect what they valued most. I have another question, Zixstar said finally. Your homeworld, Earth, is it really as dangerous as you say? Want to see? Lisa asked. She pulled out her personal tablet and showed them videos from Earth. This is a hurricane, a storm with winds that can reach 300 kilometers per hour. This is a volcano erupting. This is an earthquake that destroyed an entire city. The alien students watched in horror as the videos showed the raw power of Earth's natural disasters. And the animals? Tony added more videos. This is a great white shark. It can bite through steel. This is a grizzly bear. It weighs 400 kilograms and can run 60 kilometers per hour. This is a black mamba snake. Its venom can kill a human in 20 minutes. But people live there? Kreetal asked. 8 billion people, Jay. The final week had arrived. The War Games were the Academy's ultimate test, a week-long military campaign that would push every student to their limits. Teams of mixed species would compete across multiple environments, testing everything they had learned about strategy, tactics, endurance, and teamwork. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, the 3 humans would be separated. Commander Thizes had made this decision deliberately, wanting to see how the humans would perform when they couldn't rely on each other. Team Alpha will be led by Commander Kreetal. This is announced to the assembled students. Members include Jake Morrison, Zixstar, Thyra, and 3 other Granite warriors. Jake nodded to his new teammates. Kreetal was a respected Granite commander who had led successful campaigns for decades. The team looked strong and well-balanced. Team Beta will be commanded by Wing Leader Cylander, Thizes continued. Members include Lisa Roberts, 4 Zephyrian fighters, and 2 Cetan aquatic specialists. Lisa smiled at her assignment. She had always worked well with pilots, and the Zephyrians were among the best flyers in the galaxy. Team Gamma will be led by Swarm Master Vector, Thizes finished. Members include Tony Martinez, 6 Vex warriors, and 1 Altarian strategist. Tony looked pleased. The Vex were known for their precision and coordination, and he appreciated their attention to detail. The War Games will take place across 7 different environments, Commander Thizes explained. Arctic conditions, desert terrain, urban warfare, jungle operations, underwater combat, space battles, and finally, a combined assault on a fortified position. The alien students looked nervous. This was the most challenging test the Academy offered. Many previous classes had students who failed to complete all 7 phases. Teams will be scored on mission completion, casualties taken, resources used, and time efficiency, Thizes continued. The winning team will receive commendations and advanced placement in their military careers. When do we start? Jake asked. Immediately, Nizes replied. Transport ships are waiting. You have 10 minutes to gather your gear. The teams quickly collected their equipment and boarded their assigned ships. As they lifted off from Kepler Station, the students could see the massive training complex spread out below them. 7 different environmental zones were arranged in a rough circle, each one designed to simulate real combat conditions. Team Alpha landed in the Arctic zone first. The temperature was minus 40 degrees, with howling winds and driving snow. The Granite Warriors were well suited to the cold, their rock-like skin providing natural insulation. But the others struggled with the harsh conditions. Standard cold. Weather protocols, Commander Creedle announced. We establish a base camp, then advance systematically toward our objective. Jake looked around at the frozen landscape. The mission was to capture an enemy communications array located on a mountain, peak 5 kilometers away. The route was treacherous, with ice cliffs and hidden crevasses. Sir, Jake said respectfully, I have a suggestion. What is it, human? Creedle asked. Instead of a base camp, we could move fast and light. Get to the objective before the weather gets worse. Impossible, one of the Granite Warriors said. The distance is too great, the terrain too dangerous. Not for humans, Jake replied. I've trained in conditions worse than this. Creedle considered this. He had seen Jake's performance in previous exercises. What do you propose? Give me 2 hours, Jake said. I'll scout the route and find the best path. Then we move as a group, fast and continuous. The Granite commander agreed, and Jake set off into the storm. He moved across the ice with confidence, his human body well adapted to the challenging conditions. Earth's varied climates had prepared him for everything from Arctic cold to desert heat. 2 hours later, Jake returned with a detailed route plan. There's a way up the north face that avoids most of the dangerous areas, he reported. If we move now, we can reach the target in 4 hours. The team followed Jake's route. The humans had been right. The path was difficult, but manageable. More importantly, Jake had identified several shortcuts that cut their travel time in half. They reached the communications array. They found it defended by automated systems and holographic enemies. The Granite Warriors prepared for a lengthy siege, but Jake had a different idea. Tony always says that the best way through a problem is usually the most direct one, Jake said. He studied the defensive positions for a few minutes, then smiled. Cover me. Before anyone could stop him, Jake sprinted directly at the main defensive line. He moved in a zigzag pattern that confused the automated targeting systems, leaped over barriers that were supposed to be impassable, and reached the control center in less than a minute. The communications array shut down. Mission complete. How did you do that? Zixtar asked in amazement. Human reflexes, Jake replied, and a little bit of crazy. Meanwhile, Team Beta was struggling in the desert environment. The heat was overwhelming for most of the team members. The Zephyrians could fly above the worst of it, but their energy was being drained quickly. The Cetans were suffering badly in the dry conditions. We need to find shelter, Wing Leader Cylinder gasped. This heat will kill us. Lisa looked around at her struggling teammates. No, we need to keep moving. The longer we stay here, the worse it gets. Impossible, one of the Zephyrians said. No one can travel in this heat. Humans can, Lisa said. Let me show you something. She pulled out her water bottle and took a small sip, then put it away. Water discipline. You don't drink when you're thirsty. You drink on schedule, small amounts at regular intervals. She also showed them how to wrap their heads to protect from the sun, how to walk in the shade of rocks when possible, and how to recognize the signs of heat exhaustion. But most importantly, Lisa said, you have to keep moving. The desert seems endless, but it's not. Every step gets you closer to the end. Under Lisa's guidance, Team Beta completed their desert mission in record time. The other team members were amazed at how the humans' simple techniques made such a difficult environment manageable. Team Gamma was having their own revelations in the urban warfare zone. The Vex warriors were excellent at coordinated attacks, but they were struggling with the unpredictable nature of city fighting. Too many variables, Swarm Master Vector clicked anxiously. We cannot account for all possible enemy positions. Tony watched his teammates try to plan for every contingency. You're overthinking it, he said finally. Impossible, the Altarian strategist said. Urban warfare requires careful planning and precise execution. No, Tony replied. It requires adaptation. The plan never survives contact with the enemy, anyway. He led the team through the city using what he called human tactics, moving fast, hitting hard, and adapting to whatever they found. When they encountered unexpected resistance, they didn't stop to plan. They improvised solutions on the spot. The Vex warriors were amazed at how effective this approach was. By not trying to control every variable, they were able to respond more quickly to changing situations. As the week progressed, all three teams dominated their respective challenges. But it wasn't just the humans' individual skills that made the difference. It was how they elevated their teammates. Jake taught the Granite Warriors about flexibility and quick thinking. Lisa showed the Zephyrians how to push through adversity. Tony helped the Vex understand the value of improvisation. The final challenge was a combined assault on a massive fortress. All three teams had to work together to breach the defenses and capture the objective. As the teams coordinated their attack, the alien students realized something remarkable. The humans weren't just leading by example. They were teaching their teammates to think like humans. Remember what Jake taught us, Kretal said to his Granite Warriors. Sometimes the direct approach is best. Lisa showed us that persistence beats planning, Cylinder told her Zephyrians. Keep moving forward. Tony says we adapt to win. Vector clicked to his Vex warriors. No plan, just victory. The assault was flawless. The three teams moved like one coordinated force, each playing to their strengths while covering each other's weaknesses. The fortress fell in half the time that previous academy classes had achieved. As the war games ended, Commander Theises gathered all the students together for the final evaluation. The alien students looked different now, more confident, more determined. They had learned something from the humans that went beyond tactics or strategy. I have never seen performance like this, Theises announced. All three teams achieved perfect scores across all 7 environments. The alien students cheered, but Theises held up her hand for silence. But the most remarkable thing wasn't your individual achievements, she continued. It was how you worked together, how you learned from each other, how you became more than the sum of your parts. She looked directly at the 3 humans. I'm recommending all of you for immediate promotion to instructor positions. A galaxy needs to learn what humans can teach about warfare. What's that? Jake asked. That the best warriors are those who fight not for glory or conquest, but for love, Theises replied. Love of their teammates, love of their families, love of peace itself. Later that evening, as the 3 humans packed their belongings, their alien classmates came to say goodbye. Many of them had tears in their eyes, or the equivalent expressions of sadness.